Reshaping the global order, a strategic path to peace and prosperity. The upcoming meeting between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin in Alaska presents a rare geopolitical opportunity. If handled with vision and strategic discipline, it could mark the beginning of a global realignment, shifting the world away from perpetual conflict and financial manipulation toward stability and prosperity. By challenging entrenched globalist networks, particularly those operating from the financial nerve centers of the City of London, both leaders have the chance to break the cycle of manufactured crises and zero-sum geopolitics. Below is a roadmap for implementing the key proposals that could emerge from such a dialogue. 1. Negotiated end to the war in Ukraine. Implementation. Initiate direct U.S. Russia talks alongside Ukrainian and European representatives, bypassing NATO's bureaucratic obstruction. Secure Chinese diplomatic involvement as a guarantor to ensure compliance from all parties. Offer phased military de-escalation. Russia withdraws heavy artillery from certain fronts in exchange for Kyiv halting offensive operations. Requirements. U.S. willingness to suspend military aid during negotiations. Russian commitment to uphold ceasefire lines while political talks progress. EU economic incentives for Ukraine to accept neutrality. Expected outcome. A frozen conflict transforming into a neutral, demilitarized Ukraine, cutting NATO, Russia tensions, and freeing billions in global resources for reconstruction. 2. Security framework welcoming Russia into NATO. Implementation. Begin with observer or partnership status through NATO's Partnership for Peace program. Reframe NATO not as an anti-Russian alliance, but as a collective security organization. Requirements. U.S. and European public diplomacy to overcome decades of anti-Russian propaganda. Russian security guarantees toward Eastern Europe. A mutual commitment to resolve disputes through the UN Security Council before military mobilization. Expected outcome. Russia's integration into Western security frameworks would eliminate the primary justification for NATO's expansionism, drastically reducing defense spending and lowering the risk of war in Europe. 3. Removal of sanctions against Russia. Implementation. Gradual lifting tide to verifiable conflict de-escalation in Ukraine. Legal frameworks allowing Western firms to re-enter the Russian market. Joint energy infrastructure projects as trust-building measures. Requirements. Political will in Washington and Brussels to resist pressure from anti-Russian lobbies. Clear Russian commitments on cyber activity, arms control, and non-aggression toward neighbors. Expected outcome. Revived trade flows, stabilized global energy prices, and renewed cooperation in space exploration, nuclear technology, and Arctic development. 4. U.S. engagement with BRICS. Implementation. Attend BRICS summits as an observer nation. Negotiate sectoral cooperation in areas like infrastructure finance, green energy, and food security. Requirements. U.S. recognition of BRICS as a legitimate global economic bloc rather than a competitor to be undermined. Internal consensus that multipolarity is compatible with U.S. interests. Expected outcome. Reduced North-South economic divides, stronger global development projects, and less dependence on IMF/World Bank debt traps. 5. Comprehensive economic agreement with China and Silk Road realization. Implementation. Expand bilateral trade agreements that prioritize technology sharing, green infrastructure, and transport corridors. Use the Zangezur Corridor Agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan as a regional anchor for Silk Road connectivity through Central Asia into Europe. Requirements. U.S. abandonment of zero-sum trade war policies. Chinese agreement to open certain markets to U.S. companies. Expected outcome. The Silk Road becomes a functional global trade artery, reducing shipping times, diversifying supply chains, and boosting Eurasian, American commerce. 6. Reset with Iran. Implementation. Re-enter a revised nuclear agreement with broader economic components. Offer Iran regional security guarantees in exchange for de-escalation in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Requirements. U.S. political courage to withstand pressure from Israeli and Gulf state lobbies. Iranian willingness to restrain Revolutionary Guard regional operations. Expected outcome. Energy market stabilization, reduced Middle East proxy wars, and the opening of a major untapped market for global trade. 7. Political transition in Israel. Implementation. U.S. leverage military aid and diplomatic recognition to encourage new leadership. International coalition to support a transitional government with a credible peace plan. Requirements. Strong backing from U.S. Jewish communities advocating democratic reform. Israeli public pressure after economic isolation risks emerge. Expected outcome. Restoration of Israel's international credibility, paving the way for genuine peace talks with Palestinians and Arab neighbors. 8. Democratic renewal in Ukraine. Implementation. Ceasefire followed by internationally monitored elections. Constitutional reforms ensuring decentralization and regional autonomy. Requirements. U.S., EU, and Russia jointly funding election security. Ukraine's agreement to ban extremist militias from political participation. Expected outcome. A more representative Ukrainian government, reducing the West-Russia proxy dynamic and enabling long-term stability. Strategic impact of this agenda. If even half of these initiatives were implemented, the post-Cold War global order would undergo a fundamental transformation. From unipolarity to multipolar cooperation. From perpetual war to negotiated stability. From financial manipulation to productive investment. The Alaska meeting could thus be remembered as a turning point, when two leaders, by bypassing entrenched globalist networks, set the course for a 21st century defined not by endless crises, but by strategic cooperation.